we use the term ozone, saying that it's got to go out of bounds or end zone, obviously with time remaining. And just the operation was just way too slow. Like, I don't know if our guys didn't know we were in 2 minute or what, but ultimately the communication's got to get better. Myself to Jordan to the huddle, and that's the bottom line.
That's why it's so pivotal that you play complementary football, because today Jordan played like the player he was, and we let him down. We didn't live up to the expectations on defense.
Let's go now, a little life out here. What the hell's going on out here? Hey, what about that now?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the UK Packers podcast. As usual, your host, Dutch D, the NFL. Can we calm down? Dear God, man, can we calm down? We're nitpicking. Journalists, fans, players. The Packers scored 40 points on the Dallas Cowboys, and we were waxing them at the very beginning. And yes, there's stuff to look at. There's the special teams play, and there's the fact that we let the game get away from us, and there's the lack of urgency in the 2-minute drill, and there's people looking for Rich Bisaccia's head, all that kind of stuff. I just want to remind people we scored 40 points, right? Not only that, we went down at the very end of the game. We had under 2 minutes to go. We drove back. Jordan Love and friends drove back into that game, got the field goal, converted a fourth down. Then we got it into overtime. We used all of those minutes up and got right down at the very end. I put it out on social media and I got some responses back to say the opposite. But let me say thus, is that the Packers are literally one play away from being 4-0 in both of those games. So like in the Cleveland Browns game, we could have kicked the field goal, won that. We lost it because we didn't. And then it comes down to this game. You can pick numerous different plays. There's so many to pick from. There's big passes, toe tap grabs. There's tight coverage on Nate Hobbs and Pickens and, all of that. But of course, the easiest sort of way to... it's honestly like trying to save money on a budget. And there's loads of different areas that are outgoings, and you need to save 10 quid, and you look at some activity and it's exactly 10 quid, and you go, well, that's the problem, obviously, when it's a number of different ones, right? But the obvious one is the blocked field goal and the fact that they returned it. Look at that again, if you will, right? It's a mistake. It's a massive mistake on special teams. It shouldn't happen. It just so happened that it's sort of coexisted with so many other blocked field goal attempts that went on in that week, the most in NFL history. And just look at the actual play, the block and the way it bounces into the other guy's arms and he's just full on running down the field. It's a bit of a freak play, sort of how it panned out. And yes, it was a tied game. It feels like a loss. And if you just go to that exact play and go, take that away, and then we win. You score the field goal against the Browns, we win. So then we're 4-0, and you're looking at it going, the Packers are one of the undefeated teams. Yes, they drove it close, but this team shows resilience and comes back, blah, 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 right? And you sort of go, well, still a Super Bowl team, still no one can beat this team. And the difference is that we're 2-1-1, still second in the division, by the way, one game back from the Detroit Lions, who we handled absolutely perfectly in week one. And all of a sudden, it's fire Matt LaFleur, and Jeff Hafley's, needs to go with him, and Rich Bisaccia should be out before them and hold the door open as they leave. To me, it's just a massive overreaction. And I get the fact that people are annoyed, right? And they look at the defense and they see us capitulate and all that kind of stuff. The thing is that we defeated, and let me just add this in here, right? Is that there were, the response I got to that tweet was as well, then surely the same applies that we're another 2 plays away from 0-4. But we confidently dispatched the Detroit Lions, who went on to drop massive scores on other teams, the game after. We did the same to the Commanders, who, good squad, we dispatched them. And I said at the time in week one that, we beat a really good Lions team really convincingly, and people got back and said, they're not a good Lions team. Look at them now. They are. They're a great Lions team. I thought we would beat them. I predicted it. I thought that they would have some shaky starts, but the fact that they lost their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And the thing is the Packers have not, they're 2-1-1, so let's call it 2-2, right? For the sake of it. they didn't get blown out by anybody. I mean, the Cleveland Browns going into that game were the number one defense in the NFL. As I record this podcast, they're playing the Minnesota Vikings, and say what you want about the Minnesota Vikings, but the Cleveland Browns are also defeating them, right? When you have a good defense and it keeps you in the game, and that's what the Packers were doing up to this point. And in 2 consecutive games, we've got a red face because we've got embarrassed in 2 different ways. Number one, our offense couldn't get firing against the number one defense in the NFL. We certainly weren't out of it. We lost by 3 points. We could have won that game in the end. And then you look at this game and their defense couldn't handle it. And, luckily for us, we have Micah Parsons on our defense. We have Quay Walker on our defense. We have Lucas Van Ness. We've got Rashan Gary. And you'd sort of go, well, Steve, that's not good enough, obviously, if we let them put up 40 points. And you'd be dead right. However, first defensive drive, 3 and out. There was 3 runs. Quay Walker stopped 2 of them and 1 went for no gain. Second defensive drive, 5 and out. Keyshawn Nixon gets a great pass breakup. So this team early on were very capable of stopping the Dallas Cowboys. But remember, the Dallas Cowboys have Pickens. Javonte Williams had a really good day, 20 carries for 85 yards. This game was just Spider-Man meme. The game was Green Bay and Dallas using their offenses, and I'd proffer as well and say that Dallas got away with a couple. I mean, that pass to Turpin, wasn't it, at the end? No, Tolbert at the end. It was a 32-yarder, I think, where he just lofts it up. It looks like it's going in a bounce. Keyshawn Nixon doesn't work back to the ball, and then he gets burned for it, and then But then, using that same sort of logic, right, they get down and they have 1st and goal to put this game away, and the Packers defense step up and force the field goal. There's a lot of good things, I think, to take away from that Dallas Cowboys game. Now, the one glaring omission that it looks like is that our defense is vulnerable, right? Is that if we cannot force our will on a team up front with Micah Parsons and Rashan Gary, and they do have time, then we've found now that our defense can get exposed. We've seen everybody in defense in our backfield get exposed. We've seen Keyshawn Nixon on that play. We've seen Hobbs. I think there was nearly 3 plays in a row where he gets burned. I think Nixon got an unsportsmanlike conduct on him. We've seen Xavier McKinney miss tackles. I mean, it's very uncharacteristic, but they haven't been tested, and this is the first true test, and they failed. Right, the DBs, cornerback, safeties, had some great play, but also some really lousy stuff. Right. And that is a warning for this team. The fact that if you don't get that pressure up front, you're going to be tested. Get ready. You cannot sort of live off up front getting that pressure and you just sort of having to do a little bit in the back. This needs everybody. But certain, like I'll say, look, 40 points we put up. 27 in the first, 27 in the second. We got scuppered by a number one defense in the third, and then we put up 40 points. That field goal kick doesn't get returned, we win this game. There's the few toe tap drags that don't go their way, we win that game. Our offense doesn't commit certain penalties, but the thing that I just don't understand is calling from Matt LaFleur's head. I don't get it. Matt LaFleur is doing something very deliberately. Unfortunately for him, it's working, and that is deflecting at the end of games. It's saying, we didn't do this well, that's my fault, it starts with me. And then people are like, I'm sick of his excuses now. Don't drink the Kool-Aid of what Matt LaFleur is feeding you, right? Now, I'll understand there's people listening to this pod and they'll say, Steve, this does come down to the coach. He needs to get his players in order. He needs to, bring Rich Bisaccia to task, the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league. It's not good enough. There's back-to-back. I mean, look, the obvious headliner in this was the blocked field goal, which turned into a 2-point score for the defense, right? But there was run backs that went too far. But these are individual plays by individual players. Yes, it isn't good enough. Yes, they need to be set up correctly. And yes, we've had problems with this. But if you've been a long-term Packers fan like I have, I mean, this goes back a very long time. Special teams has been god-awful. I mean, there was a time Mike McCarthy handed in his play-calling duties. I think that was to Tom Clements. And then he went off and tried to fix special teams. It doesn't make it any better. And in fact, such a sort of problematic area over multiple different head coaches and multiple different special teams coordinators is very bad. But the headliner is going to be that lost points, right? And yes, Rich Bisaccia does need to be brought to task, but there's so much other stuff that could have went on in this game. they could have clawed this back. And looking for Matt LaFleur's head over it all is just bizarre to me. I do believe that there might be some wrinkle of truth that he holds on to people longer than he should. I think if Rich Bisaccia is not doing the job consistently over time, from what we believe from the stats, he isn't. But again, like I'll tell you, look, I'm a supporter of this team. I will call out the stuff that's bad and critical, but I do like to stop short of calling for someone's job, not unless it's absolutely egregious. That's not what I'm here to do. It's not my job. It's not my pay grade. But Matt LaFleur, has remodeled this team, got to the playoffs year on year with the youngest team in the NFL. And here he is again with a team that were tipped to be Super Bowl contenders. The Micah Parsons signing was supposed to tip this team over the edge. Jeff Hafley has been widely heralded to be the next head coaching candidate. And yet in this one, if you want to point fingers at coaches, did he crap the bed? You look at this game and I'm sure he's going to take it on himself and all this. And when you let a team put up 40 points and you're the defensive coordinator, does that mean now that Jeff Hafley was a head coach material dude and now he won bad game and all of a sudden he's out of the ranking? Like, it's so knee-jerk, it's ridiculous. The defense had a very bad game. Micah Parsons had 1 sack, which you could barely call a sack as he chased him down at the very end of the game. That was the play I was talking about that went first and goal and we shut them out. They got that, I think it was 22-yard field goal in overtime. So Micah Parsons was kept quiet on the night. These things happened in games. The other team is getting paid too. And don't feed into the sort of media or fan narrative that Dak Prescott is somehow clueless. The guy has got paid an awful lot of money and for a reason. And he has weapons there. But the one common characteristic in both of these teams on the night was that their defense couldn't stop anything. And in fact, credit should go to the Dallas offensive line, which was heavily injured and impacted, for being able to hold off Rashan Gary and Lucas Van Ness and Devontae Wyatt, who unfortunately went out injured, and Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks and Micah Parsons. They did an absolutely outstanding job. And the Dallas Cowboys had a very good tactic, which was get the ball out quickly. And if someone can put stuff like that on tape and massacre your team and your defense and bring up a score, which is the second highest score of a tie in NFL history, the first being in 1964, right? So in the modern era, this game was absolutely wild. It was nuts. But that's what I mean. The game wasn't indicative of the way a game should go. There was so much weird stuff in this, converting fourth downs and, penalties at the worst time and offsetting penalties and, the running backs not breaking out, then breaking out. There's some good performances, bad performances, and some head-scratching sort of one-off plays that happened in this game. And of course it'd have to be because the game ended in the highest tie in modern history, 40-40. So it's not the be-all, and I think this sort of calling for people's heads thing and saying that it's all doom and gloom, it really isn't. Like I said, we don't get that block field goal. The game, the consistency of the game changes. They don't bring Devontae Williams into it as much if we're dominant, if we don't go for it and be as super aggressive as Matt LaFleur said we were at the end of the first half. And this whole sort of complexity of the game changes. Just to remind people, the Packers were up 13-2 with 2 minutes left in the first half. They absolutely outplayed the Dallas Cowboys off the park for 26 minutes of the 30. And it was just this wild, bonkers. I think it was the first time in Dallas Cowboys history that they scored 2 touchdowns within a 2-minute warning. The Dallas Cowboys, look at the last quarterbacks they've had and the scores they've had, and, an awful lot of the commentators and sort of media personnel that are on TV owe their careers to playing fantastically well for the Dallas Cowboys and then going on and being able to critique other people. And this team is the first time ever in their history that they did this. And that just goes to show you how bonkers it is. With the strip sacks and the singular play to split safeties in the end zone for Pickens to come in and get it. It was just sort of a perfect storm. It was bad play by our secondary at the worst time on the worst play, and this is kind of what happens. But like I said, we were one play away somewhere winning this game. And we were one play away somewhere winning the Cleveland Browns game. And then we'd be 4-0 and we'd still be Super Bowl contenders. Jeff Hafley would still be getting voicemails from every team owner around the league to be head coach. And we'd be going, well, this is every teams are going to run you tough. And that's what it is. The Packers just find a way. Championship teams just find a way to close people out. Now we've had a taste of going up against a tough defense, and we've also had a taste of going up against an offense who plays quick ball. The Dallas were basically in the 2-minute warning mode for a lot of this game. I mean, the lead changed, 5, 6, 7 times? So they were going back and forth and back and forth. That's not very conducive with the way the Packers defense like to dominate games, which is pin them back, pin the rears back, and don't give them time to throw. The Cowboys obviously had the weapons to throw a quick game, and then Javonte Williams, fantastic player, did the job. Looking at the stats, Javonte Williams, 20 carries, 85 yards for a 4.3 average for 1 touchdown. His long was 13, so it was dead by a million plays. And we saw that happen. And again, credit to our secondary for not playing super soft. And there were big throws and there were 30-something yard gains and all that kind of stuff. But again, one of those was that freakish one of Dak basically throwing it away and Tolbert coming back to get it. That accounted for his long of 34, George Pickens' long of 28. But otherwise, it was little 8-yarders and 11-yarders and 12-yarders and 5-yarders. And, we just couldn't, it was just, we were just hemorrhaging at places. And I just really don't see the franticness of it all. I think let's start worrying when we progress further into it. As I said, as it stands, and I know we've got the bye week, is that we're 1 game behind the Detroit Lions, who we have an advantage over beating. So if we go and throw together some extra results, which I expect that we do, well, then we can get up there in the division and sort of squeeze them out based on winning percentage within the division. So it's not all lost. Lads, we've played 4 games. Can we calm down? And I just think that Matt LaFleur has done a fantastic job with this team. Yes, we're lacking in places. It was bizarre that at the end of that game, when they were calling what Matt LaFleur liked to call the ozone play, and Jordan Love said it at the podium as well, about, it's out of bounds or it's end zone, so make that shot. And then for the Packers to be so, stymied by cover 2. They play cover 2 and they're like, oh no, that's it, And we can't do anything against it. It's just bizarre. But again, we were moving the ball absolutely perfectly all the way down until we got to that, last passage of play, and then it just kind of fell apart. But it's very hard. It's very easy to be myopic about it, right? To be very short-sighted and go, Jesus, this doesn't happen. I mean, I see an awful lot of coverage about Jordan Love not being the guy. But I'm sorry, you pass for 337 yards. You get past 4th downs to get back at a team, you do an overtime drive where you're down 3 points, that ball drops dead and time runs out, you're gone. And the fact that he came back and kept a cool head like that, and yes, he'll make boneheaded plays, but if anyone watched Brett Favre play, that was just the be-all, and that was just the way it was. You get a couple of boneheaded plays every time. And this one, I don't feel that Jordan Love did something that was egregious, to be honest with you. I mean, he was right up there, and Dak Prescott got paid his money, Jordan Love got paid his money, and there were Spider-Man memes staring at each other. Jordan Love, 31 for 43, Dak Prescott, 31 for 40. Jordan Love, 337 yards, Dak Prescott with less with 319. Both of them had 3 touchdowns, and Jordan Love averaged almost 8 yards per play, 7.8, and Dak was 8. So there were just Spider-Man memeing the whole game. Problem was, defense couldn't stop anybody. A couple of run backs on special teams, a couple of bloopers there, and that's kind of what turned this game around. But defense firing on all cylinders. And look, the Matt LaFleur teams, they're always good for, 1 or 2 games during the season where you're like, what are we doing? What are we even doing? How is this? And how can we look back at past data and past games and extrapolate in any way that this would have been a possible performance? Who would have thought that with their dodgy, shaky O-line in Dallas, that was heralded as being like they're in trouble? And I went hook, line and sinker for it. I was like, absolutely, because the Packers looked like the best defense in the NFL, going toe-to-toe with the Browns for their defense. It was number 1 in the Browns and number 2 in the Packers, and then we let up 40 points to the Dallas Cowboys. Doesn't make sense. But look, that's the Matt LaFleur teams. And it is in no way an indictment of Matt LaFleur to say that, heads should roll. I just don't understand the narrative. I really don't. This is a young band of players. They're going to make silly mistakes. Yes, the 2-minute warning at the end. But look, and I say this and I cringe, right? But I've done a little tiny bit of coaching with small kids, right? My children are on a football team and soccer, that is. And I go and train them, and I will do, and it's a benefit from probably studying the NFL, is that I'll do walkthroughs with them, right? I'll get them into position, give them their tactics, and tell them where defenders are supposed to sit. If there's no one behind you, get up to the halfway line and compress the play. And, it's all about pressure. And I've all these little mantras. I do them every single week. And the young kids are outstanding. But you will have a game, and they're kids, is that they will forget. The defenders will stand by their goalie and they won't pressure and they'll be ball watching and all this because people are human. You know what I mean? You have those games. And again, if I was to stand up on a podium, which, I really wish I wouldn't for under nines, but if I was to stand up on a podium and talk about it, I'd be a bit bamboozled too, because I'm like, we go through this all the time. And when it gets to the situation, sometimes just people take their eye off the ball and weird stuff happens. And you might sort of go, Steve, not comparable. You look at this, a bunch of millionaires, they've been doing this a very long time, get paid an awful lot of money. They do this as their full-time job. They're not 9-year-olds. And all of that is absolutely true, but sometimes the same sort of applies. Otherwise, how can you explain the fact that we went down inbounds? And even Jordan Love, and I know Jordan Love he was getting in his ear all the time, ozone, 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 ozone. Go back and look at that play that falls to 1 second and tell me if you think that Jordan Love looks like the most urgent player on the field, and he doesn't, right? He's getting the people in line and they're all lining up, and then he walks with his back to the ball, turns around and then snaps the ball with very little time left. Again, I'm not pointing the finger at Jordan Love saying he's to blame. Everyone else is quite lethargic, getting back to the line and setting up and all that kind of jazz. But all I'm saying is that in his ear at that exact moment, he was getting shouted at by Matt LaFleur to get this thing going. And we're very lucky that at the end of the game, the ball dropped. But that's what I'm saying. Look how unfortunate we were to get that field goal blocked down. We were very fortunate for that ball to hit off the back of the Dallas Cowboys defender and fall to give us that 1 second for Brandon McManus to come in and kick that field goal. And again, to bring the game into overtime in the first place was a 53-yarder from Brandon McManus. Any of that could have gone wrong. The same guy who kicked the ball low enough for it to get blocked on another field goal and ran back for 2 points. Look, there's enough blame to go around, but there's also enough credit. One name that I want to call out before I end the diatribe is Matthew Golden. He reminds me all the world of a really, really ridiculously fast Randall Cobb. And I say that because there was a couple of clutch moments. It was 4th down and Jordan Love went to Matthew Golden. And the fact that, and I know the comms called it out, if you're going to rookies when you really need that down and distance, that says an awful lot. But Matthew Golden, hands extended from his body, lets the ball come into the bread basket, falls down on it. He's also sort of half kneeling because the ball has to be low so that it can't get picked off. And he comes down with it and saves the game. And, we come away with a tie to live another day. And I've been really impressed with Matthew Golden. But look, there's, enough praise to go around. As I said, Emmanuel Wilson I thought was absolutely outstanding, particularly at the end of the game. There was 2 back-to-back runs by Emmanuel Wilson. And, without those runs, we wouldn't have come away from that. We would have come away with another loss and people really freaking out about it. Quay Walker looked busy. Evan Williams looked busy. But again, they, some of these defensive players really didn't cover themselves in glory either. But overall, offense who scores 40 points, including 4th downs and coming back in regulation to tie the game and then coming back in overtime to tie the game. I don't think that can be sniffed at. These are all character building for this young squad. And it's just, look, it's bizarre. Anytime you have a draw, it's weird. So the fact that we got a draw is not typical. And the fact that this defense let a Dallas Cowboys team put up 40 on them is also not typical. So again, I don't think this is sort of, the modus operandi from Matt LaFleur and co. I really don't think it's that bad. And I think we're going to bounce back next week. At least we have the bye to get people healthy, to run through some other stuff. And I think we come back stronger than ever, if I'm honest. And as well as that, we have some, tough teams we're coming up against, but also teams who have struggled. So I don't think this is like, oh, well, the schedule's brutal from here on out. And then you look back at wins against the Lions and you go, that was really, really important when you look at games and where we're at now. Losing to the Browns and also having this weird tie, which is going to skews your winning percentage at the end of the game. But look, the highlight for me at the weekend was the Dublin Huddle event. So, we sort of want to have 200 to 300 RSVPs in the room and then see who sort of strolls in. We hit capacity. So we had 610 Packers fans, and then some of them actually we hit the sort of fire marshal alarm bells, and we couldn't let any more in. We'd games, we'd Ryan Grant there. He was a great fun, so much fun, so great stories from him. Just again, like he was in his playing career, he was going around and sort of I get instructed to say, he can't sign autographs, it'd take too long and he'd have sore hands, but he was going around and people were throwing Sharpies in his face and there wasn't a problem to him. He was signing stuff away. So we have that happening again. And again, you listen to this, it might be sort of Sunday night, Monday morning. So we have another huddle event on Saturday in London for the Jets Broncos weekend. And then I'll be outside the stadium again with the Packers camera crew. And we'll be going about and getting vox pops from Packers fans. So if you see myself around the stadium, come over and I'd love to talk to you on camera, and that will be compiled and put together and shown to the team or shown on the Packers socials. It's a really great thing that the Green Bay Packers are doing by, they have the marketing rights, but I think they're doing it in a really, really good way. I think they're coming to the grassroots fans like yourselves, getting us involved, having me host it. Again, I'm just really grateful for it, and I cannot wait to do London. We're going to have a 360 camera, we're going to have signed jerseys and helmets, we're going to be doing prizes and giveaways. There's also a big massive merch table that sits at the end of the room, and there's official Packers staff down there, and you go up and you scan your QR code and you just get free goodies. So I mean, we've never had anything like this in the UK and in Ireland, and this is only the start. This is the start of launch, and I don't know, I'm hoping that the Packers come over next year, and if they do, it's going to be like what we're doing now, but on steroids. It's just going to be absolutely out of this world. So that's really, really positive. So I'd love to see you. It's in Redwoods by Tower Bridge. So come on down on Saturday. And look, don't be disheartened, right? Use this bye week to get your ticker in order. You don't need your blood pressure meds. No heart attack pack stuff. And I'm hoping that the defense come out with a chip on their shoulder, led by Micah Parsons. And, we put these teams to waste for the rest of the season. I'm not worried about it. Matt LaFleur's still in the league coach. Jeff Hafley, don't be panicking. Anyway, I've been at STD the NFL. You've been the best audience ever. We've been at UK Packers collectively. Hope to see you all on Sunday and Saturday in London. And until then, let's go, Pack, go.